When she satisfies the policy, we collect in full. Nobody needs to know until it's done. That was the sentence that changed everything. Not the sirens, not the fluorescent lights, or the smell of antiseptic that never quite covers what hospitals actually smell like underneath. The sentence, whispered in a hallway at 3:20 in the morning by a man who should have been holding his wife's hand. Nurse Rochelle Adama heard it because she was 6 feet away, restocking the supply cart outside room 14 of Crestwood General Hospital in Barrie, Ontario. She had been a labor and delivery nurse for 11 years. She had heard families say terrible things under pressure. People crumble in hospitals. They say things they do not mean. But she had also learned to recognize the difference between crumbling and calculating. And what she heard at 3:20 a.m. was calculation. The man's name was Knox Harlow, 32 years old, 6'1", the kind of face that photographs well and knows it. He had arrived at 1:45, 40 minutes after his wife was admitted. He had kissed her forehead, he had squeezed her hand, then he had stepped into the hallway to make a phone call that lasted longer than the kiss. The woman he called arrived at 2:30. Her name was Talia Marchand. She was introduced to the triage nurse as Knox's sister-in-law, visiting from Mississauga, which would have been more convincing if Knox had not placed his palm on her lower back every time they passed through a doorway, or if she had not been wearing heels and a silk camisole at 2 in the morning in a hospital corridor. The third person was Knox's mother. Her name was Margot Harlow, 63 years old, tailored gray coat despite the season, pearl studs. The posture of a woman who had never carried her own luggage and considered that a character achievement. She had arrived at 2:15, nodded once at the nurse's station as though acknowledging the help, and positioned herself in the hallway chair closest to the exit. Not closest to room 14, closest to the exit. Rochelle noted all three of them and said nothing. She had learned that noticing is a form of doing, and that sometimes the best thing a nurse can do is pay attention and wait. In room 14, Dr. Anissa Okafor was doing the opposite of waiting. She was moving. Anissa was 36. A maternal fetal medicine specialist who had completed a fellowship at Mount Sinai in Toronto, and then, to the confusion of everyone who knew her career trajectory, taken a position at a regional hospital in Barrie, because she said she wanted to be somewhere the work meant something besides a publication. She had been on call since 6 the previous morning, 33 hours on her feet when Sable Keane was wheeled in. Sable Keane was 28 years old. 37 weeks pregnant. Dark brown hair pulled back in the kind of elastic band that says someone left the house in a hurry. She had driven herself to the hospital. That detail would stay with Rochelle for a long time afterward. She had driven herself, at 1 in the morning, 37 weeks pregnant, alone. The admitting nurse had asked about her emergency contact. Sable had given Knox's number. Then she had paused and added a second name. A woman named Harper Keane, her older sister. She gave the sister's number and then said quietly, "Try Harper first." The admitting nurse had tried Harper first. Harper did not pick up. It was 1 in the morning. Knox picked up on the second ring, which should have been reassuring but somehow was not. Sable's condition was severe preeclampsia with HELLP syndrome. Her liver enzymes were climbing. Her platelet count was falling. Her blood pressure was the kind of number that makes experienced doctors move faster without appearing to move faster, because alarm is contagious and panic helps no one. By 2:30, Anissa had ordered the emergency cesarean. By 3:00 Sable was under general anesthesia, and Anissa was working with the quiet, focused intensity of someone who knows exactly how small the window is. The surgical team did not speak unless they needed to. The monitors spoke instead. At 3:14, Sable's blood pressure dropped sharply. At 3:16, it dropped again. At 3:19, her heart stopped. Not dramatically. Not the way it happens on television with alarms and people shouting clear. It stopped the way a clock stops. One moment the rhythm was there, compromised and struggling, but there. The next moment it was not. Anissa called it. She began compressions. The crash cart arrived. The anesthesiologist adjusted the airway. Everyone in the room did exactly what they had trained to do, and they did it knowing that training does not guarantee outcomes. It only guarantees that you tried correctly. At 3:20, while Anissa was counting compressions, Knox Harlow was in the hallway. His voice was low, but not low enough. When she satisfies the policy, we collect in full. Nobody needs to know until it's done. Margot's reply was barely audible. Rochelle caught only 2 words. The house? Already handled, Knox said. October. Talia said then nothing. She checked her phone. She looked at the closed door of room 14, with an expression that Rochelle would later describe, very precisely, as bored. Rochelle set down the supply tray. She stood still for 3 seconds. She looked at the door to room 14. She thought about Doc Okafor on the other side of it, hands on a woman's chest, fighting. She thought about the man on this side of it, talking about insurance. She picked up the tray. She walked to the nurse's station. She opened a drawer, removed a small notepad, and wrote down exactly what she had heard, the time, and who had said it. Then she put the notepad in her scrub pocket and continued restocking the cart. At 3:27, the monitor in room 14 found a rhythm. It did not announce itself. It returned the way feeling returns to a limb that has gone numb. Tentatively, unevenly, then with increasing certainty. Anissa watched it for 45 seconds without moving. Then she exhaled through her nose, the only visible sign that she had been holding anything back. Sable's heart was beating. Her blood pressure was stabilizing. She was unconscious, intubated, alive. Then the ultrasound confirmed what Anissa had been monitoring since week 23. The baby had been delivered, a girl. Small but breathing. The NICU team had her. But there was a second baby, positioned behind the first for the entire pregnancy, partially obscured on earlier imaging, tracked quietly by Anissa. Since the anomaly appeared at the 23-week scan, she had documented it. She had informed Sable, in a private appointment, that Knox had not attended because he said he had a meeting in Toronto that day. She had not informed Knox because Sable had asked her not to. Sable had been specific about that. The second baby was delivered at 3:31. Another girl, slightly larger than the first, breathing independently. Both were transferred to the NICU. Both were expected to survive. Anissa stood at the operating table and looked at the woman who had driven herself to the hospital at 1 in the morning and given her sister's name first. She looked at the monitors. She looked at the surgical team. "Close her up," she said. "She's coming back from this." At 3:45, Anissa stepped into the hallway. She had removed her surgical cap. Her face carried the particular neutrality of someone who has decided what to say and in what order. Knox looked up from his phone. Talia shifted her weight. Margot touched her pearl earring. "Sable is alive," Anissa said. "Her heart stopped and we brought her back. She is in critical but stable condition." 2 seconds of silence. Knox's face rearranged itself. The rearrangement took slightly too long and the result was slightly too perfect, like a translation that is technically accurate but misses the idiom. "Oh, thank God," he said. Correct words, correct tone. Incorrect timing. Rochelle, watching from the nurse's station, noted that his hand had not moved from his pocket, the pocket where his phone was. The phone he had been holding the entire time Anissa was saving his wife's life. Margot said, "When can we see her?" "She's sedated and will remain so," Anissa said. "I need to speak with you privately. There's additional information." She led them to the family consultation room at the end of the corridor. Small room. Round table, box of tissues. A window facing the hallway that Rochelle happened to be standing directly across from because her charting station was there. It had always been there. She had not moved it. She could not hear the words through the glass. She could see the faces. Anissa spoke. Knox received the information. His jaw tightened. Talia's hand went to her purse strap and stayed there. Margot leaned back in her chair as though she had been pushed, except nobody had touched her. What Anissa told them was this: Sable had delivered 2 babies. Twin girls, both alive, both in the NICU, both expected to survive. She told them the twins had been monitored since week 23. She told them the medical team had been fully prepared for a twin delivery. She told them that the survival of both babies was not an accident or a miracle, but the result of planning and preparation, and a patient who had attended every single appointment and followed every single instruction, often alone. She let that word sit in the room. Then she said, "Your wife is alive. Your daughters are alive. I expect full recovery for all 3. I want to be completely transparent about the level of support that will be required going forward." She said, "Your wife," with a particular emphasis that was not aggressive. It was precise. It was the emphasis of a person who chooses words the way a surgeon chooses instruments. Knox left the consultation room first. He did not walk toward room 14. He walked toward the elevator. He took his phone out before he reached it. He dialed. The call connected before the elevator doors opened. Margot left second. She walked to the hallway window and stood there looking at nothing. Her hand went to her pearl earring again, and this time she removed it, held it between her fingers, and put it back. The gesture of someone recalculating. Talia left last. She looked at neither of them. She walked to the elevator, waited for the next one, and rode it down alone. She did not come back. Rochelle watched all three of them leave. None of them had asked which room the babies were in. None of them had asked if the babies had names. None of them had gone to the NICU. She looked at the closed door of room 14. She thought about the notepad in her pocket. Then she went to find Dr. Okafor. Sable regained consciousness 38 hours later. The first thing she saw was the ceiling. The second thing she saw was Anissa, sitting in the chair beside the bed. Not standing, sitting, that detail. Later Sable would say that was how she knew. Doctors who stand are delivering information. Doctors who sit are staying. There are things I need to tell you, Anissa said. All of them. And I'm going to be here the whole time. She told Sable about the cardiac arrest. She told her about the delivery. She told her about both girls, alive, stable, getting stronger every hour 2 floors up. She told her everything in the order a person can absorb it, with pauses where pauses are needed, and silence where silence does more than words. Sable listened. Her face moved through the stages of it, the fear arriving late, the relief arriving next, the wonder arriving last and staying. Both of them, she said. Both of them. And they're okay? They are more than okay. They are determined. Sable looked at the ceiling for a long time. I want to see them, she said. Before anything else, I want to see them. The NICU arranged it. Rochelle had made certain requests on Sable's behalf, the kind of requests that do not require paperwork, only the willingness of one person to advocate for another when the other person cannot advocate for herself. A wheelchair, a clear path, a room with good light. The first time Sable held her daughters, one in each arm in the soft blue glow of the NICU monitors, she did not speak for a very long time. She looked at them, 2 small faces, red and wrinkled and absolutely committed to being alive. The larger one was sleeping. The smaller one was awake, studying Sable's face with the intensity of someone who has just arrived somewhere unfamiliar and is deciding whether to trust it. Hi, Sable whispered. I'm here, I made it. She looked at them for a while longer. Then she said, very quietly, not to Anissa, not to Rochelle, not to anyone in particular. He didn't come, did he? It was not a question, it was a confirmation. The way people say things they already know when they are ready to know them out loud. Anissa was careful, she was honest. He was here the night you were admitted, she said. He received the news about the twins. He left the hospital at approximately 4 a.m. And he hasn't been back. No. Sable looked at her daughters. The sleeping one stirred. The awake one continued her assessment of the new world. Rochelle, Sable said. Rochelle stepped forward. She had been standing by the door, close enough to help, far enough to give privacy. The way she had been doing for 38 hours. You heard something, Sable said. It was not a guess. Rochelle understood then that Sable was not the person Knox had described on the intake form. Not fragile, not passive, not the kind of woman things happen to. The kind of woman who notices what is happening and files it away until she is ready. I did, Rochelle said. Will you write it down for me? I already did. Sable nodded. She looked at Anissa. I want to speak with a lawyer, she said. Before I speak with Knox, before his mother contacts me, before any of them. Lawyer first, I can arrange that, Anissa said. Today. There was no pause. Anissa had been expecting this request. She had been expecting it since 3:20 a.m. 2 days ago, when Rochelle had come to her with a notepad and a steady voice, and told her what she had heard. Anissa had contacted the hospital's patient advocate that morning. The advocate had contacted a family law attorney in Barrie, who took on urgent cases. The attorney was already prepared. All Sable had to do was say the word. She had said the word. The lawyer came that afternoon. Her name was Ingrid Foss, 51 years old. Short gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. The kind of lawyer who does not perform competence because she does not need to. She sat with Sable for 2 hours. She listened. She took notes. She asked questions that were specific and sequential and never once condescending. She did not tell Sable what to feel. She told Sable what she could do. When she left, Sable had signed 3 documents: a petition for emergency sole custody, a request for a forensic accounting of the joint assets, including the property transfer Knox had executed in October, and a formal separation agreement that would be served within 72 hours. She also had a copy of what Rochelle had written down. Time-stamped, witnessed. Knox came on day 4. He brought flowers, peonies in a glass vase from a florist on Dunlop Street, the kind that wraps stems in craft paper, and charges $40 for the presentation. He stood in the doorway of the recovery room and looked at Sable in the bed and at the 2 bassinets beside the window, both occupied, both holding daughters he had not yet seen. "Sable," he said. He said it softly. He said it the way a man says a woman's name when he has practiced saying it in the car on the way over. Not the way a man says his wife's name when he has been worried about her for 4 days. "Sit down, Knox." He sat. He set the flowers on the side table. He looked at the bassinets. "Twins," he said. "I still can't believe it." "You could have come to see them," Sable said. "The NICU is on the 4th floor. It's been open to families since they were born." He started to respond. She watched him construct the response in real time, the mouth opening, the words assembling themselves behind his eyes, the brief hesitation while he chose between excuse and apology. "I know," he said. "I should have. It was a lot to process." "Yes," Sable said. "It was." She let the silence run. She had learned something in the 38 hours she was unconscious, although she would not have described it that way. What she would have said later was that she had known for months. About Talia, about the property transfer, about the insurance policy Knox had increased in September, and the beneficiary change he thought she had not noticed. She had known, and she had done what people do when they know something devastating. She had moved slowly, carefully, and alone. She had copied documents. She had opened a separate account. She had spoken with Harper, who was a paralegal in Ottawa, and had said the exact right thing, which was, "Don't confront him, prepare." Sable had prepared. She told Knox what she knew, not angrily, not tearfully, in the calm, measured voice of a woman who had been dead for 8 minutes, and come back and discovered that the things she had been afraid of before were smaller than she remembered. She told him about Talia. She told him about the October property transfer that her lawyer was already challenging. She told him about the insurance policy, and about the hallway, and about what Rochelle had heard at 3:20 in the morning, while Anissa's hands were on her chest. She told him that she had already filed, that the documents had already been served to his office, that the forensic accountant had already begun. Knox's face went through something. Not the careful rearrangement from the hallway. This was involuntary. This was the face of a man who had walked into a room expecting to manage a situation, and discovered that the situation had been managed without him. He spoke. Some of what he said were apologies. They arrived in the wrong order and with the wrong weight, the way apologies do when a person is apologizing for getting caught, rather than for what they did. Some of what he said were explanations. He mentioned stress. He mentioned pressure. He mentioned the pregnancy as though it were something that had happened to him. Sable let him finish. Then she said, "I didn't ask for an explanation, Knox. I told you what's happening. Those are different things." He looked at the bassinets. For the first time since he arrived, he looked at them with something that might have been real. The smaller one was awake. She was looking at him with the unfocused, serious gaze of a newborn who does not yet know what a father is supposed to be. "Can I hold them?" he asked. "No," Sable said. "Not today." He left 40 minutes later. The peonies stayed. Sable moved them to the windowsill. She looked at them for a moment. Then she looked at her daughters. She had chosen their names on day 2 in the NICU, while Rochelle stood nearby and Anissa checked the charts. Ivy and Hazel. Her grandmother's garden in Aurelia had been full of both. Names that grow. Names for girls who arrived in the middle of the night against every odd and decided to stay. Ivy was the smaller one, the one who was always awake, always watching. She had the look of someone who was going to have opinions about things. Hazel was the quieter one. She slept deeply and completely and woke up ready, the way people do when they trust their surroundings absolutely. Sable looked at them in the afternoon light from the hospital window. Outside, it was late April. The trees along Bayfield Street were just beginning to green, the kind of slow Ontario spring that takes its time arriving and then, one morning, is suddenly everywhere. "We're going to be fine," she said. Not to anyone. To the room. To the light. To whatever was listening. Anissa stopped by every day for the 11 days Sable was in the hospital. Sometimes briefly, a chart check, a question about pain management, a look at the incision site. Sometimes longer. Once, on day 7, when the twins had been moved into Sable's room, and the afternoon had gone quiet and gold, Anissa sat in the chair beside the bed and neither of them spoke for a while. They just watched Ivy and Hazel sleep in the double bassinet by the window, two small bodies rising and falling in the synchronized rhythm of people who have known each other longer than anyone else in the room. "You knew," Sable said after a while. "About him. I knew some things," Anissa said. "Not everything. But you sat down. When you told me, I did. That's how I knew it was going to be all right." Anissa looked at the twins. Ivy stirred. Hazel did not. "They're going to be remarkable," Anissa said. "They already are," Sable said. "They've been remarkable since before anyone knew there were two of them." Knox's mother Margot attempted contact once. A phone call on day 6 that Sable declined. Then a letter, handwritten on cream stationery, delivered by courier on day 8. Sable read it, folded it, and handed it to Ingrid Foss at their next meeting. Ingrid read it, raised one eyebrow approximately 2 millimeters, and placed it in the file. "This will be useful," Ingrid said. "I thought it might be," Sable said. Talia was never heard from again. Not at the hospital. Not in the legal proceedings. Not in any of the places where her presence might have been expected or demanded. She vanished the way people vanish when the thing they attach themselves to stops being profitable. Quietly. Completely. Without explanation or apology. Because both would require acknowledging that she had been there at all. The forensic accountant found the property transfer in the 2nd week. It had been executed in October, exactly as Knox had said in the hallway. He had moved the family home, the one Sable's inheritance had largely paid for, into his name alone, using a power of attorney that Sable had signed during a period when she was on bed rest, and had been told it was a routine estate planning document. The accountant also found the insurance policy adjustment. The beneficiary had been changed from Sable to a numbered company that traced through 2 layers of paperwork to Margot's. Ingrid presented the findings to the court. The judge's response was not dramatic. It rarely is. It was precise and thorough and final in the way that legal consequences are when the evidence is clean. Knox lost the house. Knox lost primary custody. Knox lost the insurance policy, which was voided entirely due to the beneficiary fraud. He was granted supervised visitation, which he exercised twice in the first month and then stopped. Whether he has stopped because of shame or inconvenience, or the particular mathematics of a man who only valued what he could profit from, that was something Sable decided she did not need to know. Harper drove down from Ottawa and stayed for 3 weeks. She slept on the couch and made coffee at 6 every morning and held whichever twin was crying at 3 a.m. without being asked. She did not say, "I told you so." She did not need to. What she said on the 3rd morning, standing at the kitchen window with Hazel asleep on her shoulder, was, "You did it exactly right." Sable looked at her sister. She looked at Hazel. She looked at Ivy in the bassinet by the counter, awake, as always, watching everything with her serious dark eyes. "I almost didn't make it," Sable said. "But you did, 8 minutes. And then you came back, and then you handled everything." Sable poured the coffee. It was a cold morning. The kind of late April cold that Ontario holds on to right at the edge of spring. The last argument of winter before it gives up. The kitchen window faced east. The light was just arriving. "I keep thinking about Rochelle," Sable said. "The nurse." She wrote it down. Before she knew if it would matter, she heard what Knox said and she wrote it down on a notepad and put it in her pocket and kept working. She didn't know I would live. She didn't know any of it. She just wrote it down. Harper was quiet for a moment. "Some people do the right thing without knowing if it will count," she said. "That's the whole thing, isn't it? That's the entire difference." Sable brought the twins home on a Tuesday. The house was the same house. Her house now. The nursery she had set up for 1 baby had been adjusted by Harper for 2. 2 cribs. 2 mobiles. The walls were the pale green Sable had chosen in February, the color of new things. She stood in the doorway with a daughter in each arm and looked at the room. The morning light came through the window the same way it always had. Nothing about the house knew what had happened. Houses don't. They just hold whatever you bring into them and wait for you to decide what it means. Ivy was awake. Hazel was asleep. The balance of them. The completeness of them. Two people who had been hidden and then revealed and then fought for and then finally, simply here. Present, breathing ready. Okay, Sable said to them. To the room, to the morning. She walked inside. Some hallways go quiet at the wrong moment. Some people in those hallways say the things they think no one is listening to. But someone is always listening. A nurse with a notepad. A doctor who sits down. A woman who drove herself to the hospital alone because she had already learned that the only person guaranteed to show up for her was herself. And sometimes the thing that everyone in the hallway was certain was finished turns out to be the part where it actually starts. Not neatly, not without damage, but with two cribs in a green room and light through the window and the stubborn, irreversible fact of being alive. The bassinets were never empty. They were just waiting.